Hey, everybody. Welcome to another live question and answer without my entourage here. Soon that will be changing, though. Patrick and Michaela and Jimmy, you'll have them all back. All the cast of characters will be back, hopefully. I know they will be. But anyhow, today won't be like last week. No rants today. We're going to try to get some information to you guys about upholstery, which is why most people want to see this. But before we do that, a little business. We're still, I think, at 18 and a half. That's what YouTube tells us for subscribers. But I think it's closer to 19. I don't think they give you the breakdown in between. I think they just give you the half numbers. So I think soon we'll be at 19, which would really be great. And then it's just another 1,000 to 20,000. So if you're just watching this, you guys, if you've learned something from the videos and you're curious and you're on this and you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. I think I'm guilty of not subscribing myself to certain things. Shame on me. I should subscribe to everything because I'm always asking people to subscribe. But Facebook, the forum's gotten some really good activity. One of my Diane came into the shop to say hello. One of the students, hi Randy, and she. Thanks for coming, Randy. She has posted a lot on Facebook, guys. I'm going to go review some of the stuff, and you guys can look for yourselves if you want. And YouTube, as usual, there's some comments on YouTube. I still think I tell Patrick, I think we miss things on YouTube. I don't know how they just slide through. We don't usually we get an email notification for comments, but sometimes we have four categories of emails. If I can remember this: promotion, update, social, and primary. So Patrick set me up with that, and I remember that email was just you just had one email and there were no subdivisions. Now we're getting all these subdivisions, so I think that's how things slip through. You're just not as attentive, I think, on some of the other ones, and I don't know how it happens, but I will have to ask a Google expert. But anyhow, thank you again for joining us. I'm going to get right to Patrick's text. He texts me with the updated information about the channel and also the Facebook. And I think I want to start with the Facebook, but then I want to talk about buttons because we have a happy Monday, Randy. We have a couple of questions about buttons on the Facebook, which I'll read to you about tufting, and I want to go over a few things about buttons. It's hopefully I'm going to get to that. We got a lot to do today, actually. Um, and I want to talk about a delivery that Jimmy and I've been giving Jimmy a break because he's been on a couple of really difficult deliveries and pickups with me. Really weird stuff been happening. One of the things that I do sometimes is offer free pickup and delivery. And on one of them, I truly regretted not charging something for both the pickup and the delivery. They go to the same space, so I should have known better. But anyhow, I'll talk about that with Jimmy. But before I do that, let's get right to and you guys as usual. Hey Wes, I think we're going to be answering one of your really intuitive questions about tufting, and I think I'm going to have some good tips for you um, and a little history about tufting too. So let's get to this first, the Facebook. Where are you, Patrick? Here we are. So the first one is from Diana, and this is the Treasuries of Upholstery. Uh, First, I'll show you the picture. Looks like a salt mine. That's salt. And let me hold that up a little longer. You know what? It's funny. I know she's doing this tongue in cheek, but let's read it. What it says. One of the former owner of this chair sure loved their big salted pretzels. We got about a tablespoon of coarse pretzel salt out of each side. You know what? You laugh. She is tongue in cheek about salt, but from what I know about salt, salt was a commodity that was not readily available. And if you had that, if you were a rich person, you had a little thing of salt on your table, and your dining room table. That was considered elite at the time. It was very expensive. I also heard uh, something about pineapples on Facebook. Is good if you can believe Facebook, right? Facebook is good for some little. I like the little tidbits of history on Facebook. Lately, they've been posting a few good ones. pineapples were, this is what they said, pineapples were so rare and such a treat that you would pay up to $8,000 for pineapple. Do you believe that? Not coconuts, Jimmy, unfortunately. I don't think coconuts were as prized because I think they would just last longer, right? They had a thicker shell. I know pineapples probably would go bad at some point on the ships, but so salt was at one time, Diane, I'm not sure if Diana knows this. Salt at one time was a treasure to find. So that's hers. That's good. Thank you for posting that. Let's see what else. How does he know this? Where does he get his information from? Everybody's now Googling this, right? Be my guest. But with Google, you have to be careful with some of your stories that you tell, right, Daphne? Because people can just Google, right? Thanks to Lynn from England. She's joining us. Durham. I have relatives in Yorkshire that I had the pleasure of visiting, and that's where Yorkshire pudding, right, comes from. What a country out there. England is beautiful. Daphne says, haha, I like the pineapple story. Check it out, Daphne. See if I'm right. But remember, I get all my information from Facebook. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. I'm on YouTube. I don't want to be on YouTube, Patrick. Where am I? On Facebook. Okay. Jay, he posted these pictures. They look like, before I read it, don't they look like birds' nests? Doesn't that look like a bird's nest? Um, Jay says, I decided to jump in and share my footstool project. I felt like the first wood wool attempt had compressed too much. Pulled it out, pulled it off. Okay, Patrick. You guys probably will see the rest. Daphne, if you can go on Facebook and find out what the rest of the comments are, because I don't have them. They're not up here. Maybe they're not up there either. If you could check that out, that would be great. I'm going to go to the next one. Denise is asking, this is an interesting thing. She's asking, what is this style cushion called? And I haven't had to do one before. Now, before I show you, I bet Randy and Wes, and maybe even Daphne, might have a different name for this cushion, but I'm going to tell you what I call it. So I'm going to blow it up for us to see. See that? I call that a pinch pleated knife edged or pinch pleated single edged cushion. And those pleats can be anywhere from a half of an inch to 10 inches if you really want them, if you want a cushion that big. But they're not necessarily hard, Denise. You can actually, too, this has a little bit of an extra thing going on here. It's almost like what we call a Turkish corner without that, to me, looks like a Turkish corner. So what they simply did is that they, on the reverse side of the cushion, they twined it out so that those two welts disappear into the pleats. Isn't that's called a Turkish corner? So I'm wondering now what Randy would call it. Don't know what it's called, just know how to sew it. Well, Randy, for your customers, you can kind of spice it up a little bit. You really know what you're doing now. You can call it, I'm going to give you a single welted, pinch pleated, Turkish cornered cushion. It sounds a lot better than just saying, hey, I'll sew it up for you. And by the way, I think you're downplaying your talent a little bit, Randy. If you could sew one of those cushions, you do have a talent, man. He knows that. Daphne's checking to see if that other comment has more pitches. So I don't know what she's going to do about it. Maybe she could just tell me what it says. Sorry, guys. We're going to be okay. The next one. This is from Susan. And Susan says, so I haven't posted in a good while, but have recently been working on a customer's Victorian club chair. Victorian club chair. That's a little unusual. Not only is the seat sprung, but the back and the arms too. She's got a seat that normally, when you see a sprung arm, and speaking of Turkish, that's usually a Turkish chair, but wait till you see it. It's not a Turkish chair. This is a very unusual chair. I'll show you in a minute. Let me just read it. not only is the seat sprung, but the back and the arms as well. Anyway, here's my progress, still not quite finished, as I have to finish sewing the back on yet, and the front panels of the arms to do as well. Two separate box cushions that go with it. Phew! Yeah, this is a ton of work, you guys. Ton of work. So, a lot of times, how do you tell your client? She did a great job tying them. That's the bottom, you guys. She's using an antique um, webbing, and she's hand tying the springs to the bottom. So that's a lot of work in itself. We're not even at the top yet, right? Top of the springs. So let's just catch up. Daphne, thank you. So on Jay Tillman's Facebook post, that looks like a bird's nest. He posted a few follow-ups on the comments. He added a different box of the stuff with a different texture. Then he fluffed it up into a crown. And he finished. Then he used a diluted leather conditioner to soften it. Hand sewn burlap to contain the wood fibers, then used a towel as a temporary cover. Wow. Daphne says he's calling it, let's see. Thanks, Daphne. Wood wool. I've never heard that. I learn something new every time, right? And Wes says that's a lot going on that chair that we're talking about. But that's an interesting post. Thank you, guys. Keep those good posts coming. I've never heard of wood wool before. Oh, speaking of wool, you guys, I had a nightmare I want to talk to you about. I had a chair, a very old chair, that came to the shop, and I was stripping it. A moth came out, circled my head, and then went back into the chair. I panicked like you wouldn't believe, because that could be a nightmare. Fortunately, I had no finished work or wool in the shop, so I could quickly. If that ever happens to you, just bag it up quick, seal it up, put it somewhere away from all your other furniture, and then you need to fumigate it. It's going to take 2 weeks. I mean, this is a mess. It's going to delay the job. It's going to take 2 weeks to fumigate it. It's got to be left alone. They can fix the problem. Um, I talked about ozoning at one point too, about when you have this difficulty. I'm not sure what the best thing is. These people are fumigators. That's what they're going to do. He said something about putting a strip in the chair. I have no idea what he's talking about. You just got to come out and do it. But it could be a nightmare if you don't respond to that quickly or ignore that. Don't ignore that. Just quickly do something about it. The customers usually are going to pay extra for something like that. It's a real pain in the neck, though. I've had a couple of things happen lately. It's been one of these. Maybe it's the curse of the big box stores after me, Daphne. After last week, right? So I have this chair. It's another problem. It's a Snow White chair that I'm working on today, and I have it here because this is much. My other store in Arlington's clean, and I keep it clean. But there's a lot more going on down there. Calm, the Daphne says. So a lot of the cleaner stuff that I need to keep clean comes here. It's just to clean. It's like it's an office with the carpeting and better lighting and everything, and this is the studio. So I have this white chair. It's. Let me just turn around. You can maybe see it over the fabric over my coat there, right there. The snow white linen, right? So, what little tip when you're doing a chair like that, you guys? There's some in the trash. It looks like tourniquets. Might as well be. But the problem is, make sure you're always looking at your hands when you're working on all your fabric, as a matter of fact, because if you're bleeding and you don't know it, and you go home for the day and the blood dries, that's a big problem. If you do get blood, so I cut myself twice on this chair, and while I was upholstering it, and that's on me. I'm usually really good about stripping. So another thing you guys pay attention to when you're stripping furniture, if I insist on stripping my own furniture, but if somebody's stripping the furniture for you, you got to make sure that they check at least 2 or 3 times, and they have to do their own check, their own hand check. Maybe go over it gently with their fingers to make sure. Some people use the back of their hand just to go along, and you might, if you do it safely and cautiously. You could pick up the staples that are sticking out that you didn't get in the first stripping and tack them down with your hammer. Make sure you do it at least 2, 3 times, really. So I got caught, so I was bleeding, but thank God I didn't get any blood on the chair. And I couldn't believe it. I kept looking at the chair. I must have just caught it because it's a habit. I'm always doing this. If you've seen my videos, you might have seen me. Maybe not on the videos. I don't know. But when I'm doing custom furniture, and then I don't band aid. Don't band aid. You guys might laugh at this, but you nurses out there. If I use, people are gonna say you shouldn't do that, but I use tape. Just tape everything up because band-aids fall off and you don't know it when you're working. You might not know it. Might go in the chair. You have to really be safe and clean, really. And this is the best way I know of quickly to cover up a cut while you still have to work. I mean, you can't go home for the day, right? You still have to work. So Daphne's, let's just catch up with some interesting comments. Daphne's a great researcher. That's what I like about one of the things I like about you, Daphne. Pineapples were indeed a symbol of luxury. They only lasted for 1 month, and the voyage from the New World to Europe was much longer. Columbus tried to bring back pineapple, but only one survived. I guess that would up the cost. And then she says, I don't see a dollar amount, but they were served by the wealthy. Well, they are good though, aren't they? I don't know how good they would be after being on a ship for all that time, though. Randy says, buy some white cotton gloves from the drugstore. Great way to keep fabric clean. Use that a lot when I install drapery. Yeah. Do you still not get the tactile? Anytime I put gloves on, I lose that, which is very important to us upholsterers to lose that touch, even if it's a lightweight rubber glove. I don't know how the doctors do it, although they use a lot of instruments. That's the difference, maybe. I'm talking about when you're pulling fabric and when you're feeling for bumps and lumps and everything else. It's just there's nothing like your own skin, right? But that's a good suggestion when you're delivering, furniture. But I always cover. That's another thing I do, guys. Invest in some plastic, clean plastic. Don't reuse plastic, whatever you do. You never know what's used. Uh, it's just not a good policy. Get fresh plastic, cover everything. I mean, I've had some really worked for upholsterers who wouldn't do that, and they had some really crazy, wacky things happen. Like I remember a white sofa delivering a beautiful sunny day, and we had this van that had a back door on it that had springs. Anytime you have springs, you have oil, and it never happened in the history of the truck. But this one time with the white sofa in the back that wasn't covered, oh, don't worry about it. It's a nice day. Just deliver it and get the money. Well, a big blob of grease fell off that spring right on the sofa, so we had to bring it back. Daphne says, "What So what a pennies on the pennies? I don't even think a sofa bag cost a penny. Maybe a penny for a sofa bag. You could have and a tape. I always tape up down my bags so they don't fly off. I tape them around the legs. Um, Even if it's not raining, I had the same treatment, and then I wrap the cushions individually with plastic. By the way, I think customers really appreciate that. When they see that, they like that. They don't like it delivered. I knew a guy, I know an upholsterer who would deliver beautiful, and it's funny. It doesn't always good upholsterer doesn't always translate into good delivery a lot of times. And some of the best upholsterers I know didn't have the final delivery, which is the delivery and the end product, right? But he had a pickup truck with 2 German Shepherds, throw everything in the back and deliver it. He loved his dogs, but I don't think that looks good when you're delivering somebody's sofa, even if they have dogs. I don't know. Daphne says, I found the article that said pineapple could cost $8,000, but there's no reference in the article to the source. Daphne, you have to be careful with that stuff. That can really follow you around if you say something and you don't have a reference. That's for sure. I wonder why they get to post those things like that. But anyhow, they without references, I mean. But it's fun. So let's get back to some of the Facebook. I guess we're not. You wonder how much disinformation there is out there, though. I mean, you look at our YouTube channel. which I'm very proud of. I try to everything I say on the YouTube, I try to be upfront and honest. I mean, there's nothing dishonest about upholstery. Maybe there is. I don't know. But I remember somebody told me that on CPR videos on YouTube, 8 out of 10 are like, not that they're no good, but they might be outdated in some of the information. So you have to be very careful with things like that. CPR, come on. Upholstery, that's one of the nice things I like about upholstery. I bet you guys have found the same. That that very little changes. As a matter of fact, the things that do change aren't always for the better. And I'm going to get to that with the buttons, um, with one of these comments. Excuse me. Let's get back to this. And there were more pictures with Susan's. So let me just catch up on Susan's. She's the one with the springs in the arms and everywhere else. Let's just show you this. This was the back. Sorry about the quality there. I know there's reflections. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that, but pineapple. I'm wondering if pineapple was ever used. Pineapple coconut fiber was used. I wonder if pineapple was ever used in upholstery. I don't know the answer to that. But here's the fabric that Susan. Look at this fabric, you guys. Isn't that nice? She's used a challenging fabric. That not as so she's got springs everywhere. And in most years we only have one spring, but she's got millions of springs. I'm telling you, she's got a fabric that's a chintz. That is she hasn't told me what it is, but that looks to me like a chintz, which is a chintz is a coated cotton cloth, right, you guys? It's a treatment that you make a chintz. It actually stiffens it, which doesn't make it easy to upholster, right, guys? Now, Randy, you tell me a little bit about that on draperies. I don't know if that's easier on draperies, maybe because it's heavy, it might fall better. I'm not sure, but on upholstery, it's a nightmare. Daphne says, okay, okay. Daphne, you should make a living as a historian. Here's one from the BBC, a reliable source, that in the 18th century, one pineapple had value of 60 British pounds, which is roughly 11,000 pounds. Now, I bet Lynn can weigh in on this. Um, another name for wood wool is excelsior. That's right, Denise. You're right. Now I know. Now I know what it is. Often used in gift baskets like Easter basket grass, if that makes any sense. So I wonder if it has resiliency. Does it go flat? I mean, if it's too bouncy, I wouldn't like it. Well, horsehair is too, but horsehair has a different quality. The quality of horsehair that I talk about a lot, it's got the spring, it's like little mini springs. Each little hair is like a little mini spring. And that's what make horsehair probably the best batting available. And so thanks, Daphne, for not giving up. 11,000 pounds is more than the 8,000. Wow, that's crazy. That's like off the charts. Lynn says, as a direct result of watching your videos, I have just completed my first upholstery project. Yay! I wish I had balloons. Well, maybe I could kind of simulate a balloon going up. Ooh, balloon. Maybe, but us upholsterers will use tacks. 6-ounce tacks. Woo! And maybe 12-ounce tacks. Patrick's probably losing his mind right now if he's watching this. 12-ounce tacks. Woo! But it's good. I love it. I remember my first time. Do you guys remember your first time, your first project? I bet you do. It's a big deal. I wanted to show. I did a chair. Let's see what she says. Let's stop talking. As a direct result of watching your videos, I've just completed my first upholstery project. A two-seater wing-back sofa and two wing-back chairs, all with scrolled arms. Holy cow, Lynn, you really tackled something big, huh? And she says, thank you. And she's got, now Daphne has to help me with this face. To me, it looks like a rabid a person with foam. Do we get a rabies shot for that little, I don't even know what they call them. Usually I call them a little smiley face. And Daphne says, "Oh, that does make sense." Randy says, "Lynn, see, I like this. You guys, if you're watching us for the first time, with this comment section is great, and it's been helpful for me to do this when I don't have the other things, other people in the studio. But the Facebook forum is such a great place to go to find help with your fellows. This is the type of encouragement I think you can get, and I think that's wonderful. It's kind of like a family of upholsterers. Randy, thank you for that. Daphne says, I feel the texture of that would be similar to straw. Yeah, and I don't like straw. Straw was one of those wartime. I don't know if you guys know this, but during World War II, we had such a lack of supplies. A lot of farm batting came into play. One of them was straw. I actually, again on Facebook, Daphne, I saw silk was forget about silk. I went into all the parachutes for the men and women of the war effort. But the woman at home would paint. They would go to a place and get their legs painted to look like they had nylons on. So there's a little bit. I don't know if you knew that, Doctor. Uh, she says, "I do." Oh, you do know about that. Uh, that's a grinning emoji. Emoji. See, guys, I'm really kind of out to lunch on this stuff. Uh, sometimes it's also gritting teeth. And I did hear Daphne knew about the it's I didn't know they use pencil to draw in the nylon. So people make do, don't they? I mean, it's very interesting. If you guys ever come across to be upholstered a 1940 to 1945 anything type of furniture, it would be interesting always to video that maybe and send it along to see what you find in it. I mean, we've found you find all kinds of interesting substitutes. So let's get back to this. I think I'm still missing. Boy, I'm kind of slow. There's two more pictures in here. So here she is with the inside back on. Susan, nice, huh? And I would say that you don't have to care a print this big. Well, some of you do, but it looks to me like she's just doing an overall. She's not centering anything, which is fine. That's fine. Sometimes it's better. And it doesn't mean when you do an overall, you guys, an overall pattern. If you have an overall pattern, it doesn't mean you go blind to the pattern. As a matter of fact, if somebody says, like I had a case like this with throw pillows, like 8 throw pillows, and it was a fabric, that modern looking fabric, but very colorful. And she didn't want anything. She didn't want them to match. But just because they don't match, you really still have to be careful with an overall. Not it was multicolored, so you have to be careful. Your splash, you really need to be careful. Do you know? You guys know what I mean. You don't want to, even though you're not centering, you want to make sure. I call it a splash. It should be a splash. It shouldn't be. Let's say there's bold orange, bold red. Let's say that. You don't want too much of that in each cushion. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't mean you close your eyes and cut. It's in some ways you need to pay more attention. Does that make sense? I'm going to catch up on your messages a minute. There's one more picture, +3. Oh, Patrick doesn't have them there. Oh, she's got her outsides on in this one. Look, you guys. I'm sure you guys go on Facebook and look at this, but for all you who aren't looking on Facebook, this is a good job she's doing. I think she's paying. I can always tell when people follow my videos that they pay attention. Just want to point out one thing there on her curved back. She's spending a lot of time on that outside arm and back. I talk a lot about outsides, that people drop the ball on outside sometimes because they're just finishing up the chair and they think, oh, it's just the outside. But chairs sometimes are out in the middle of the room. Outsides can become more important than insides. Let's catch up on Dylan. Uh, she says these faces are hard. I can't even pronounce the word. Are hard to interpret. I agree. I sometimes will look at it and say, "What is that?" Dylan is here. Good morning from Australia. Again, 6:30 a.m. Time to get to work. Have to quote 3 pieces, 2 wing chairs, and a settee. Hope you're all well. Dylan, I hope you get that job. Use every sales pitch imaginable. I hope you get it. Let us know if you get that job. That is a big job. That is a really big job for an upholsterer, right? Wes says hello to Dylan. Um, let's look at some more. Okay, so Diana, we have a lot of business on Facebook. So I'm gonna read to you what Diana has said on Facebook. That's the Broadway Upholstery at Facebook. SG says hello. Hi, he says, "Hi, Kevin. This is my club chair. Yes, the fabric placement was difficult." Oh, we were just talking about you. Yep, Susan. And I tried centering in some places, but in other places, like the arms, I just put it on. That yeah, I agree with that. So I had a job similar. I had a job that I just did. It was a huge paisley print, which is a little unusual for me. I don't usually have prints. I don't usually deal in prints, but this was a huge paisley print. I'm talking about like a foot. Paisleys thin at the top, and really they look like a teardrop almost, and they fatten up the bottom. That's how you want to put it on. So on this one here, what I did, because um, on certain parts of the chair, like the seat, that would have been cut off. So we just did and it was a three-piece sofa. I had to put it in three pieces because I couldn't even get two out of a width. The pattern was so big, I couldn't get two out of a width. So you're on the right track with that one. So I have a welt in the middle, two welts in the middle for the center cushion, and then off to the left and the right we have a panel. So those three panels, I made that big paisley right in the middle. Paisley, paisley, paisley. Now it wouldn't have been wise to do an overall on the back. It wouldn't have looked good because we would have had to piece it first of all, or you would have been cutting paisleys in half, and that wouldn't look good. So then on the bottom cushions, we had the paisley, centered the paisley, but on the seat, I had to actually cut it away from the big paisley, and I just had enough to eliminate the big paisley. So you know what I mean? And then the arms, oftentimes it doesn't matter, but you have to be careful about at that point balancing. So Susan, you did a good job at balancing the fabric. That's another term that I've used a lot. Balancing, meaning you don't want to end up with the paisley on the left arm and no paisley on the right arm. You don't. So if you wanted to put the paisley on the arms, make sure that you center them. But the thing about paisleys is, we've had customers sometimes get in arguments with you when they don't think you did a good job on something. So when you have an inside arm, you have to mark the cover top, and you have an inside left and an inside right arm. So I don't particularly like about floral vines or big paisleys because they have this. All of the paisleys on this fabric had a left turn on it. None of them had a right turn. They were all left, which made it a little hard. So when you put it on the one arm, it's off to the left, and then it's off to the left on the other arm, which is right, but it doesn't look right. And the customers sometimes will pick up on things like that. So it might be better off for for aesthetics not to center the paces, but you guys really have to work that out. It's a case by case. And if you've seen, I've done videos on pattern placements. That's very interesting. You guys might want to check that out. Uh, so so let's read Diana. This is I'm going to show it to you because this is. Hold on a second. Does she have a picture here? I'm going to show you her project first, and then I'm going to read this. She's working on a beautiful Victorian sofa. It's pretty big for a Victorian sofa. It is a sofa. It's not a love seat. And she's got the horsehair kind of. Isn't that nice how she's got the horsehair decked out? She cleaned the horsehair. Let's read her first one. This is primarily a contribution to anyone learning to upholster like me. I'm always open to feedback and advice. I've been following Kevin's French settee course. Oh, by the way, Patrick wanted to remind me, the last class went up today on the French settee, and Patrick said there was some funny things in there. And Randy picked up. Randy, sorry, Jimmy he worked so hard on that piece that he wore out his scissors. And I think at one point he was getting a little frustrated because he didn't have his scissors sharpened. But things like that. But that's okay. That's life. And Patrick tells me there was a couple of other things on there that don't forget, if you guys haven't signed up for the class, you can always get it and start from the beginning. Um, so that's good information today. I have to say I did that. It's one of the things I was supposed to do. All right, whatever. So then Kevin's French settee course, which has been so helpful, but I was wishing for a good close up of the edge roll to see how much stuffing should be bitten into and how much wiggle is allowable once it's all secured in place. On top of that, in this class, Jimmy tacked the inside edge first and then stapled the outside edge. But when I did this, I felt it was harder to get the staple to bite into the stuffing. So I tried reversing the order, stapling the outside edge first and then tacking it. Seems like both yielded pretty similar results. So what she did, what Diana, if you're watching, and I didn't comment, uh, what you did was problem solve. And they used to say, I think every job there's problem solving, and every life there's we wake up and we have to problem solve something, no matter what we're doing. But in upholstery, the actual descriptions that the government uses description to describe all jobs. I can't remember what it's called. Our government, you guys, for all you guys in Australia and England, I don't know what you guys do over there, but they have descriptions of jobs for, I guess for kids who are picking and choosing what they want to do. And in upholstery, it's like one of the first sentences, or the first sentence, must, and probably highlighted, must be able to problem solve. That's a big thing. And this is what Diana did. She did this. She did this, and she found a better way. But when I did this, so I tried reversing the order. She had success there. This piece also has a tack rail, so the inside edge is actually not flat but tilted at a 45-degree angle. So that may change how tacking and stapling feels. So she had the challenge on that front edge was that she had a thin front edge and it was angled. Now the angling, why it was angled, I don't know. I don't know why they angled it, because it's not necessary if you're putting an edge roll on, unless she means beveling. But beveling really would have the negative effect for something like this. Beveling on the top of dining room chairs, for instance, is a good idea, but not in this case. I don't know if you guys are following this. Also important PSA. I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm very used to wearing safety glasses. Boy, am I glad I didn't decide to shirk my safety practices today. The edge roll is very bouncy, and one of the tacks was giving me trouble. I saw this happen to Jimmy too in the video. I was hammering away. This is really important, you guys. Glasses. I have glasses, which aren't safety glasses, granted, but they're better than having nothing. And so, if you guys are upholstering out there and you don't want to wear safety glasses, go to CVS and buy those generic ones. I mean, that don't interfere with your vision. I mean, I know that that's poor advice, and I know people watching this might think that's poor advice rather than safety glasses. But I know people. I know people don't like that enclosure on the sides. They find it restrictive, or it's like a little suction that you have to put. It's almost like a scuba diving mask. But though, I mean, something like that's better than nothing. But I wouldn't do any upholstering without something over my eyes, something over your eyes. So this is good. I'm going to read the rest of this. The edge roll is very bouncy, and one of the tacks, I think I warned her about this. I saw this happen. One of the tacks came out or whatever. I was hammering away, and all of a sudden I hear a tap in my safety glasses. The tack had flung up at a considerable speed right towards my eyeball. My safety glasses saved me a world of pain. Safety first, folks. Diana, that's a really good post, you guys, and I think should be taken really seriously. And I'm wondering if Randy, do you, Wes, Randy, Daphne, Lynn, do you guys wear safety glasses? I hope you do. SG, it really, I think I do talk a lot about this, especially on the online classes. Safety first, right? And then let's read further. Okay, front edge. Well, she's done the front edge with her safety glasses. Okay. Front edge, well done. I think it feels pretty solid now. I'm not sure what to do with the back of the cushion. On the original, there was an edge roll sewn into the front and back. Unfortunately, I think my 1.5-inch edge roll is too fat. It is, don't use it. I'm assuming edge roll is still necessary for the back to get a clean edge. Do I need to size down? I barely have an inch of width to play with. I'm wondering if I'm going to need to learn how to sew an edge roll to accommodate this geometry. I think it was a little overkill originally. I don't think you have to do that. I think that you can get a little creative with an extra horsehair back there. And that extra horsehair piece, you can staple it on, right, across maybe about 3 inches. So in other words, you're intending to put 2 layers of horsehair. So on the back, it could be, in actuality, in a smaller area, three layers, right? Randy says I wear glasses so I can see. Yeah, Randy, me too. I have a prescription pair of safety glasses also. Oh, no kidding. So Daphne says she wears contacts. I don't know how you can do that with all the dust. I had to stop wearing my contacts with the dust in an upholstery shop. And SG says she wears sunglasses. And Wes says it's a natural habit because from woodworking. So woodworking will develop some really good because I mean, look what can happen in woodworking. It's a lot more dangerous than upholstery, if you ask me. And Daphne says she wears them when she's stripping the furniture. Yeah. Um, so let's see. Diana goes on. So she's got her front edge roll down. So here's an interesting tidbit, you guys. Diana stumbled on something that some upholsterers do. She thought it was an accident, but it's interesting how do they say, there's that candy, that Reese's butter peanut butter cup. There used to be a commercial where a peanut butter truck and a chocolate truck were coming to an intersection. They had an intersection. They had a small accident, but it was, you get the idea. And the peanut butter and the chocolate mix, and it came up with the cookie. This is kind of like that. Not really, but you know what I mean. Diana says, I'm not sure what to do at the ends of my edge roll here. It's not terminating at a frame, so I'm not sure how to make sure the result looks smooth. Do I need to somehow staple it down so that it doesn't tapers? I need, you really can't staple through the whole thing. And I wouldn't use, if that's what she's asking. Do I need to somehow staple it down so that it tapers? Let's see, tapering, it's impossible. This 1.5 inch rail is impossible. She's asking about the end. So she's not going to be able to get, I'll show you this. Sorry, guys. I'll show you the picture. Here I am talking about it. You see what her dilemma is? Daphne, how do you retain all this? She knows everything. She says she must be really good at Trivial Pursuit because the question would be, what did the truck drivers say to one another? And Daphne has the answer, and it says, "You got chocolate on my peanut butter, and you got peanut butter in my chocolate." I can't even say it; it's so funny. Two great tastes that taste great together. She even knows the tagline, you guys. Gee, that's why the men are the hunters and the women are the gatherers because they just remember where everything is. Men are just chasing around the animals, and yeah, never mind. Daphne says, "I love that commercial. Yes, I am good at Trivial Pursuit. I knew it. I knew it." Randy says, "Oh, okay." So her dilemma is she's wondering what to do at the ends. She could just, I told her that she needs to staple the front, but be very careful doing that. Maybe with 1/2 inch staples, just to kind of snip the burlap. She has to do that. This has to be really tight. So the back flange has staples and tacks. You could put 14-ounce tacks. Although I'm not sure if she had success with that because this wood reel is very thin. So oftentimes the furniture frame makers didn't give the upholsterers much of a break when it came to things like this. So she has to go on the side and maybe grab a couple of pinch staples on the side here. But then she goes on because she touches upon something interesting. I'm not sure how to make sure that do I need to somehow staple it down? We said that. You can't taper it. The original edge roll was hand stitched, so I think they had a little more control over the profile. Yeah, if you had burlap underneath there, if you were hand stitching, what you could do, here's a good tip on the end, but she can't do it because she's into wood. You could take a slip knot. And if you saw Jimmy's class, that's what we had Jimmy do. We had Jimmy slip knot, but not for the purpose that she's thinking about, the tapering. So if you ever have to taper a edge roll, the slip knot is a good friend of an upholsterer. I use the slip knot in a lot of places, um, including in the yard. I just tied up my wife's rose bush with a slip knot. We had this rose bush, no, it's so stupid. I kept on catching it and it getting thorns in me. There's this one branch that was coming out. Of course, the roses haven't bloomed yet, but this is a beautiful rose bush. I'm not sure where we got it. I finally said maybe I should string that up, and so I got some burlap twine, some of the heavier stuff, and I did my slip knot. It worked great because when you're taking the slip knot, you wrap it around the whole bush. And now that I think about it, I've used this on more than one bush. And you do your slip knot, and you can just watch the whole plant kind of like rise up, and then get thin, and the walking path gets clear, and you can kind of really control it. It beats trying to wrap it, which is almost impossible. If you try to wrap a rose bush with twine and try to tie it up, Randy says spring twine is great to tie up the plants with, and also brings up something that I was thinking about doing. Hey, if you guys have the energy to do this, you could take my idea and do it. If anybody knows about time lapse, if they have the patience or the equipment, I always thought it was neat if you have an old chair, because it just brings back all this stuff that we're talking about is natural. Burlap, cotton, horsehair, pineapple, coconut, straw. So if you get one of these chairs, um, usually I visualize, maybe it doesn't have to be a big chair, small chair, and then put it out in the yard. Just kind of cut it open to give the birds a little bit of a head start on it. Cut the seat out open, cut the back open, get a time lapse, and watch to see if the birds don't take most of the materials, or see what happens to it over a season. I think that would be pretty interesting, but a lot too hard to pull off. I don't know if anybody is able to do that. I'm great with ideas, but finishing them up is my problem. Believe me, it is a problem. Except in my business, I'm forced to finish up to live. I'm assuming edge roll is necessary to back down a clean edge. Okay, so she goes on. Sorry, you guys. Oh, we already read that one. Hold on a second. Well, she's got a lot here, so I think I answered that one. And that's it for Diana. That's a lot. Thank you, but I appreciate it, Diana. Really. So now let's go to YouTube. Um, so on YouTube, on count, so we've got a lot of good responses for the supplies that we've been showing on YouTube. And Patrick's got these catchy that I didn't know. I just give Patrick a free license on, but some of the stuff is cute. He says, "Caught in the web of upholstery," that about webbing. And one day at a time says, "These videos are so great, answering all the little questions I have. Thank you." And then the comfort of Dacron, uses and tips. Nancy says, "Great tips, thank you." And BVLVI says, "Awesome." And then padding dining room chairs A to Z. Sorry. She says, "Great video, thank you." How do I post the outside back? I was just talking about outside backs. When you might think, oh, he just did a video on an outside back. How boring is that? But outside backs are important, especially that was a dining room chair. Dining room chairs sit with the backs out. And if you don't do a good job on the back, what's the point? So you need to do that. So Randy says, well, first, let's say what Steven says about tying up plants with upholstery materials. So it's still on the upholstery. Last week we drifted a little bit. It was just me in the studio. So I can't blame Jim. Sometimes I'll turn to Jimmy and say, "Hey, we're drifting and it's all your fault." Last week was a total drift. I was totally drifting all by myself. Um, Steven says tying up plants, run the cord through a tube and use the tube to reach the cord around. Not bad. And Randy says, "I put out hair and cotton for the birds in the spring. I also have a lady who shows up once a year for some scrap cotton for her pet birds." Randy, that bring I'll just briefly mention, I'm a frustrated writer. I've never had anything published, but Patrick and I, when he was young, I used to tell Patrick stories, and he would never be able to sleep at night. He's awful. Couldn't sleep. And so unless I told him 3 it had to be 3 original stories, and I could never repeat myself because 'cause he'd remember, "You told that story last year, Dad, I want another one." So we used to make up these stories. One of them was, there was a French factory that made tapestry and all the extra tapestry material, all the multicolored tapestry material, they would put out in the dumpster, and they'd leave the dumpster open, and the birds would come and take the tapestry. And I mean, the story went on and on. I'll just brief to it briefly. The birds would take the tapestry for their nests, and to this day, it's a big tourist town you go to. You can see all of the nests of the birds, and they're all multicolored tapestry nests. That was the story, but we kind of stretched it out. I gave you an abbreviation of it, but it's a nice thought. Upholstery is one of those things, I think. Who does it harm? Nobody. Um, the stories that go along with it usually are good stories too. I was going to get to, I don't think I'm going to get to a lot today. Actually, I can't believe that let me just finish up. Um, this has been, I hope you guys I'm enjoying this. I think we touched on some new things. Lisa says, thanks so much on the outside back. I'm finishing this up now. So much for sharing this information. I have 6 dining room chairs to repair. So helpful. And then Randy, thank you, Randy. He has commented here. Oh, hold on a second. Randy says, as a side note, you can shop in, we're talking about chalk in one of the videos. He says you can shop in the chalk with a nice point on it in a pencil sharpener. I never thought of that. Is a pencil sharpener have a hole that's big enough for the chalk to go in? Must be if he's doing it. Is it an electric? Did you say electric or a hand one? Oh, he says okay. He's I should have read the whole thing. He says you need a sharpener that can adjust to different diameters. That's an excellent idea to get a better point. That would I could see where that would give you a better point. Of course, Randy, the chalk that we use is that very powdery chalk. It's not a school chalk, so I'm sure that you use the same chalk I do. Some do manual. Yep. There was another. Okay, and then Steven says, let's see. I'm not sure what he's talking. Oh, he was referring to the upholstery show. We were showing a chair in one of the Facebook postings of all that nice floral, and Steven says the paint in parentheses on the chair frame might be of a water slide decal persuasion. It was a very popular home crafted trend in the late 60s and 70s. I never knew that. And thanks for the information, Stephen. Is he on here? Yeah, Stephen, thank you. And Stephen also says on stapling foam, I sometimes bevel the lower edge corner away on the thicker pieces. That allows the upper surface to roll right over and down smoothly. That is an excellent tip. I use muslin fabric to force some foam into the shape and thickness I want. That's a little tricky, Stephen, as you know. You have to be really good at stretching material to do that. And this is what we try to emphasize on those online on classes and some YouTube videos, the stretching. That's one thing that people have lacked um, is stretching because stretching is something that has to be taught in person a lot of times. I feel I do the best I can on the YouTubes, but it's one of those nuances in upholstery stretching, and what he's saying with the muslin is a fabric that stretches a little too much, but that's a difficult task, Stephen. So if I were going to suggest to do that for a beginner, I would tell them to use a lot of pin tacks. And what great practice that is, Stephen. Now that I mention it, right? That is great practice for somebody who's trying to learn how to stretch fabric properly. What he's saying is you can contort or mold foam with the muslin cover to your desired effect. You can have the front more crowned or less crowned or half crowned. Do you see what I'm saying? But pin tacking is definitely an essential tool, especially for beginners in that. It's good practice. The manufacturer had wrapped cardboard around the wood frame, and over time, every bit of the frame was transmitting through the attached pillows. Manufacturers are great at not following the rules because what do they care? They're not making something to last 25 years, which, by the way, as upholsterers, let me just finish it. Now we can sit on the arms as comfortable as the seat cushion. So I think that's it. So I wanted to make a point about that. Us upholsterers, us custom upholsterers, especially, Daphne, when you're doing stuff yourself for yourself. And but for our clients, we don't say, I don't when I'm upholstering a chair, and I could do this, but it'd be so unnatural for me to do it. We don't say, I'm going to make this last 6 or 7 years so my customer can come back and get this upholstered again. I never had that happen. Due to what he was just talking about, what Steve was just talking about. That was, I wonder sometimes if they don't do it on purpose. I think they do. Um, they want something to last 6 or 7 years. So for instance, our dining room chairs, I do a lot of dining room chairs over, and it's funny though. The wood frames are great. They're Queen Anne legs. They're beautiful wood. But the seat, the slip seat, they use a rubber stretch piece of rubber, and that's it to hold up. People. Who some of us, not me, weigh about 200 pounds. Instead of webbing it, interlacing webbing and burlap and 1 inch foam and a little cotton before that, maybe and another piece of cotton. That's how we do. We want things to last, right? I was just looking at some of the other comments. I like that Randy has done that before. He's actually thought about doing that. Hey, it's natural, right? Birds love it. For the birds, I mean. So let's talk before I leave, because I promised to talk a little bit about buttons. But before I do that, I'm not going to get to the supplies again. Wow. I mean, we are doing the videos. Um, but Randy says manufacturers go for the quick and cheap. They do, but their masters at they wouldn't be able to sell anything if they didn't do really fantastic top work or finish work. It's always amazed me how they can be so. It's almost too good though. It almost looks too good, too machine made. I guess I know that that's good in maybe mid-century furniture. But I don't think it's so good in traditional furniture. Traditional, like traditional, I mean fully upholstered sofas and chairs and things. It just dawns on me that they need to be good at that, but everything else underneath they kind of drop the ball on so that it doesn't last long, and that they go back hopefully to the same place. But anyhow, that was last week. I did want to mention this nightmare of an antique. I did this beautiful Victorian antique sofa, and I wish I had a picture of it, but I don't. Jimmy took a picture of it. So next time Jimmy's here, I'll ask him to share it. But it was a beautiful, beautiful, really old, original, like Victorian from the 1820s, and it was in exceptional good shape. And I upholstered it with the red like chenille, and it was really beautiful. And when I went to pick it up, Jimmy wasn't available, Patrick's not around, and I couldn't find anybody, so I picked it up by myself. And I took a four-wheel dolly with me. She lived on a sixth floor of this old apartment building in Cambridge, Mass, which is outside of Boston, just to give you guys other parts, a little bit of geography. And unfortunately, I didn't know this when I wrote the job. I found out when I got there that the service elevator had been out for 20 years. No service elevator, 20 years. So the only elevator they had was the passenger elevator, an old time passenger. Not didn't have the iron gate. It was just about. But it was a very small elevator. And this I had to pick this up, put it on a dolly, and those curve. They have like a curved arms like this. Try balancing that on a dolly. It's almost impossible. And I didn't realize that I would have. Carpenters what they call rig things. They use a rig. I would have done that, but so it was not balancing right. I had to take it through the just made it had these beautiful casters on it. When I talk just made it up on its, I had to put the back end first, and the customer was right with me the whole time. I said, "Oh man, it was a nightmare." I finally got it down to the stairs, and I had to pick this thing up. This thing had some weight in it. I mean, you're talking about the stock on these things are this thick. So there was a lot of wood stock that thick, and I had to be careful. It's one thing lifting a heavy item like a refrigerator, and it probably weighed as much as a refrigerator, I would say. It's one thing lifting a refrigerator. It's another thing lifting an antique Victorian sofa that you can't break. So I had to pick it up from it there when it left the elevator, there were stairs, so I had to bring it up the stairs, out to the street where I was double parked and into the van. What a workout that was. Bringing it back wasn't any easier. Jimmy helped me bring it back, and, as luck would have it, they were fixing, the front entrance where I had been, so we had to go to a back elevator. We had to go from the floor level up 1 flight, then walk down a hall to another elevator up to her 6th floor, and then walk it all the way around, pretty much the interior of the building. What a nightmare. And I didn't get any money for this. Free pickup and delivery. Of course, I remember when I was writing the job, that was the thing that sometimes you guys, you have to bite the bullet. If I had known it was going to be this hard, I wouldn't have offered free pickup and delivery though. But I did it because it got the job. And I remember that was like this close to not getting the job. So and this customer said, "Hey, people shop. You guys, hey, Best of Boston doesn't mean anything 2018. The people still shop. And if somebody was offering the same labor cost as I was, but charging her $150 each way for pickup and delivery, they didn't get the job I did. But I kind of regret it a little bit. So that I wanted to talk about that, and maybe next week I'll talk about, and I'll ask you guys to think about your nightmare deliveries, your nightmare. Some are funny, some aren't. Your nightmare in-house repairs. Some of the strange things you might have gotten into, as long as it's clean. If you guys could think about that between now and next time, that would really be kind of cool. Um, and the economy. I'm telling you, I'm a little nervous about the economy. I don't mind telling you guys that. So I'm not sure, when with the business how I'm going to go. I'm really hesitant to start classes again because I know a business near me hasn't even got out of phase one. If you guys remember in the beginning of this whole crazy thing in early 2020, the businesses could stay open like bakeries or food business of supermarkets and things like that. They were in what they call a lockdown of sorts. And what it means is no customer contact to put the packages outside or have it delivered. But I know a business that's been in this since the beginning. I have not let up. And, I look at the classes in a way like that. You start the school again. I mean, this is a big project to start the in-house classes. And the only reason I say this is because the economy's kind of hit a skids here. I don't know how you guys are doing. I'd like to hear about it, actually. So I always wander back to that. So, okay, should I start the school again? What stops me is the press might have a little to do with it. These waves, we're experiencing a new wave in Massachusetts. So I just, from a business standpoint, it's really difficult to predict. I used to be really good at predicting, but I've never been in a case over 40 years of business where I haven't been able to predict things, and I'm really in that position now where I can't really predict on that end of things with the school anyhow. And I know it's important because I have a small space and I'd have a lot of people crammed together, and I don't think masks would work very well. So that was it. Oh, I did mention the last class of the French class was up today. So if you guys have bought that online class at Upholstery on Broadway, you guys should check it out. So SG says her business is really doing well. I'm not sure where she is, but good. A lot of it has to do with price points, you guys. So if people are shopping more, for instance, if you're a higher price point like I am, people will go to the lower price point in the UK. So what would you say? And what you said? Randy says he's going to be gone next week. He'll be on a train back from Montana, so I'll catch you in a couple of weeks, Randy. But before we go, I just wanted to talk a little bit about buttons, and I think I missed a comment somewhere about tufting. Somebody was asking about foam tufting. Foam tufting is the best tufting that you can hope for is an old antique Victorian that you're taking the old fabric and buttons off and reupholstering it using the horsehair backed, usually on a back, never on a seat. I hardly ever see hand tufting on a seat in old Victorians. But you see the manufacturers every once in a while, some designer forgets and puts buttons in a seat, always not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. I never recommend that. But the point they were talking about foam and tufting. The problem with foam, well, first of all, buttons. You got your number 22, you got your number 30, and you got your number 40. The buttons come in a loop and a shell, and your dies. Your dies are really important. Always make sure that your dies are not having any burrs on them. And you guys, I always recommend that you guys hand make your own buttons. Don't fall for even if you've got 1,000 buttons to make. Make sure that you make each button. Just watch, when you're watching TV or something. Do it when it's a downtime, or sometimes I like making buttons for that reason. It's just kind of like I just wander away. The repetitive work sometimes is good for us, I think. But make sure there are no burrs. Always look at your dies first and run your finger along here. And of course, the best way to tell if a die has outlived itself is if the button doesn't make well and you're testing all your buttons. Um, so I just wanted to make a point about tufting foam. I've Tufting foam is difficult because it has too much give. You can imagine. The question was how deep do you do it? Well, so you have a sheet of foam, right? It's about the thickness of the foam. It's 3 inches, probably what I would use on an inside back, or 4. And then what I would do, you guys, a little trick. So, like I said though, tufting foam is harder than tufting horsehair. Horsehairs are harder prep work. If you're going to do it with the horsehair. Prep the horsehair too. Do a solid horsehair, and then you can even just take your finger and just finger it, right, and take all the horsehair out of each. You can measure out your cushions, your buttons, right, and do it that way. Usually, you have a piece of muslin over the horsehair, and then you can cut a little piece at each button, and then just drill it out with your finger. It's a lot easier than the foam. And the foam, if you're going to do a foam, um, I had a very smart upholsterer show me once, really smart. He took this die and he got a drill, and he taped the whole thing up in the middle. He put the drill in, and this was used to cut the holes in the foam. This is the die that comes with the buttons, right? Goes right through, and that's how he made his buttons. But that is going to be a challenge. Tufting foam, it can be done, but in my opinion, it doesn't look as good. You need a little bit more resilience, and firm foam will not do, because then you're getting into the comfort of a piece. Nobody wants a firm foam. It has to be a medium foam. And when you do a medium foam, it's really going to be hard because you're not going to have the pressure. Your pleats don't get your pleats cave in at the foam points, right? You guys know what I mean. Whereas if it was horsehair, the horsehair's formed really nicely. It forms really nicely with the pleats. So you'd be hard pressed on make sure you get enough money if you're going to be doing anything with foam, tufting with foam. But I guess that's it. I'm going to catch up on some comments here. Randy, Randy, isn't that funny? So Randy says he's been getting a lot of strange calls, and isn't that interesting? I have too. That is really, really interesting, Randy. Let's see if I can remember some. Um, yeah, this fella called from another state, and he had a cushion that was frayed, and he wanted me to fix it, and he was willing to come down all the way to Boston with this cushion. And I said, well, I've stopped doing repairs as such too, because I found that you get into these repairs sometimes, and one thing leads to the other. Like on these cushions that you take apart, sometimes they don't go back together again. And I've had that happen a few times. So Randy says, I just fixed a button tufted seat last week. Strings were popping, buttons coming off. So the Chesterfields were, I bet our friend in England knows what I'm talking about, because this was an English sofa. They had the deep tufting on the seats, and with springs. Now Now, come on, the spring, you're going to sit on it, and those were very expensive. You could spend up to $10 or $12,000 on these sofas, and these buttons would be popping all the time. Not a good design. They finally caught on, and they had started seeing these with the upholstered seats, and the arms and the backs were only tufted. So, boy, I think we covered a lot today, you guys, and I had a lot of fun, and I hope you guys learned some things, some new things. And Randy says before I go, yesterday was to make a king headboard into a full side. We're not magicians, right, Randy? Oftentimes we get asked these things. But anyhow, it's been great, you guys. I'll see you. I won't see Randy next week, but thanks all you guys for tuning in. That was really a lot of fun. And hello to my friends who watch this afterwards, like Janine. And Janine usually has a couple of comments, although I noticed she didn't comment last week. I think she was being kind with my ranting. Every once in a while, we're entitled. But anyhow, thanks a lot, you guys, for checking in. We'll see you next time, okay?